I can't believe you, Zara. I slave away at work all day to come home to this slop? Ethan hurled his plate at the wall, shattering it. I flinched, my voice quivering. I'm sorry. I had a migraine today, and... Excuses, excuses. That's all I ever hear from you, Ethan sneered, his face contorted with rage. You're lucky I even married you, considering how plain and unremarkable you are. His words cut deep, reopening wounds I thought had long since healed. I met Ethan 3 years ago when I started working as a receptionist at his law firm. Despite my quiet nature and average looks, he pursued me relentlessly, showering me with compliments and grand romantic gestures. Swept up in the whirlwind of his charm, I fell head over heels. Our courtship was a fairy tale, but reality set in soon after we exchanged vows. Ethan convinced me to quit my job, insisting that he wanted me to focus on being the perfect housewife. I agreed, eager to please him and build our life together. But 3 months into our marriage, Ethan's true colors began to show. He nitpicked every aspect of my homemaking, from the way I folded his laundry to the seasoning in my cooking. Nothing I did was ever good enough. Honestly, Zara, sometimes I wonder why I bother coming home at all, Ethan sighed dramatically, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. You can't even handle the most basic tasks. I bit my lip, fighting back tears. I'm trying my best, Ethan. It's just been a difficult day and... Oh, spare me the pity party, he scoffed, rolling his eyes. You don't know what a difficult day is. You sit around this apartment all day, doing God knows what, while I'm out there busting my ass to provide for us. The irony of his statement wasn't lost on me. It was Ethan's idea for me to quit my job in the first place, yet he never missed an opportunity to throw my unemployment in my face. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my frayed nerves. I appreciate everything you do for us, Ethan. I'll try harder, I promise. You better, he warned, his tone icy. I didn't marry you for your scintillating conversation, Zara. The least you can do is keep the house in order and put a decent meal on the table. With that, he stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind him. I sank to the floor, hugging my knees to my chest as silent sobs racked my body. How had my life come to this? What happened to the charming, attentive man I fell in love with? As I sat there, surrounded by the shards of the shattered plate, I couldn't help but feel like they were a metaphor for my marriage. What once seemed so perfect and promising was now broken beyond repair, and I was left to pick up the pieces, alone and disillusioned. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan's verbal abuse only escalated. He seemed to take sadistic pleasure in tearing me down, finding fault in every aspect of my existence. Zara, have you gained weight? He asked one evening, eyeing me critically as I set the table for dinner. You're looking a bit softer these days. I glanced down at my body, suddenly self-conscious. I don't think so. I've been eating the same as always. Ethan smirked, a cruel glint in his eye. Well, maybe that's the problem. You're not exactly active, are you? Sitting around the house all day, it's no wonder you're turning into a blob. His words stung, but I tried to brush them off. I'll start going for walks in the evenings, I offered, hoping to appease him. Don't bother, he scoffed. It's not like it'll make much difference. You'll always be plain old Zara, no matter how much you try to improve yourself. I bit my tongue, fighting back the urge to defend myself. I knew from experience that arguing with Ethan only made things worse. As I served him his meal, he took one bite and grimaced. Christ, Zara, is this what you call dinner? It's like eating cardboard. I followed the recipe exactly, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I thought you liked chicken parmesan. I like it when it's cooked properly, he retorted, shoving the plate away. This is inedible. Honestly, I don't know why I keep you around. You're useless as a wife and homemaker. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give Ethan the satisfaction of seeing me cry. I'm sorry, I whispered, gathering up his plate. I'll make something else. Don't bother, he sneered, standing up from the table. I've lost my appetite. I'm going out. He grabbed his coat and keys, slamming the front door behind him. I knew he was likely heading to a bar or to meet up with one of his colleagues. It wasn't unusual for him to stay out late, leaving me alone with my thoughts and insecurities. As I cleaned up the kitchen, my mind wandered to happier times. I thought about my old job at the law firm, how fulfilling it had been to contribute and feel valued. I missed the camaraderie of my coworkers, the sense of purpose I felt every day. But Ethan had convinced me to give all that up. "I make more than enough money for both of us," he'd said. "I want you to focus on making our home a haven, a place where I can relax and unwind after a long day at work." At the time, it had sounded romantic, the idea of being a devoted housewife. But now I realized how much I had sacrificed for a man who didn't appreciate me, who seemed to delight in my misery. Late that night, as I lay in bed alone, I heard Ethan stumble in, reeking of alcohol and perfume. He collapsed onto the bed beside me, snoring loudly, not even bothering to undress. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, a hollow feeling in my chest. Was this what my life had become? A series of endless days, catering to a man who treated me like dirt with no escape in sight? I knew I should leave, that I deserved better than this. But a part of me still clung to the hope that Ethan would change, that he'd go back to being the charming, loving man I'd married. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come, and my illusions were about to be shattered in the most devastating way possible. It was a typical Sunday afternoon, and I was doing laundry, trying to keep myself busy and distracted from the constant tension that hung over our household. As I emptied Ethan's pockets before tossing his pants into the washing machine, his phone tumbled out, landing on the floor with a clatter. I picked it up, intending to place it on the counter, when a message flashed across the screen. It was from Valerie, Ethan's secretary at the law firm. I hesitated for a moment, knowing I shouldn't pry, but something compelled me to open the message. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was a photo of Valerie, scantily clad and posed provocatively, accompanied by a text that left little to the imagination. "Can't wait for round 2, baby. Last night was incredible." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My hands shook as I scrolled through the message history, each exchange more explicit than the last. It was clear that Ethan and Valerie were having an affair, and from the looks of it, it had been going on for months. Rage and betrayal coursed through my veins. How could he do this to me? After everything I'd sacrificed for him, all the abuse I'd endured, he had the audacity to cheat on me with his secretary. I heard the front door open and Ethan's footsteps in the hallway. I stormed out of the laundry room, his phone clutched in my hand, ready to confront him. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, thrusting the phone in his face. Ethan's eyes widened for a moment, but he quickly composed himself. "What are you doing snooping through my phone, Zara? That's private." "Private?" I laughed bitterly. "You're screwing your secretary, and you have the nerve to talk about privacy." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not what it looks like. It's just harmless flirting, nothing more." "Don't lie to me," I screamed, hot tears streaming down my face. "I saw the messages, the photos. How long has this been going on?" Ethan's face hardened, his eyes turning cold. "Fine, you want the truth? Yes, I've been sleeping with Valerie, but can you blame me? Look at you, Zara. You're a pathetic excuse for a wife. I only married you because I thought you'd be easy to control, but even that's proving to be more trouble than it's worth." His words hit me like a slap in the face. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. "You never loved me," I whispered, the realization dawning on me. This whole marriage was a sham. Ethan smirked, a cruel twist of his lips. "Oh, don't act so surprised. Did you really think someone like me would genuinely fall for someone like you? You were a means to an end, Zara, a convenient little wife to keep the house clean and warm my bed at night, but even you couldn't get that right." I felt like I was going to be sick. The man I had loved, the man I had given up everything for, was nothing more than a manipulative, cheating bastard. "I'm done," I said, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and grief. "I'm leaving, and I'm filing for divorce." Ethan laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Go ahead. But remember, Zara, you're nothing without me. You have no job, no skills, no prospects. Good luck finding someone else to put up with your pathetic existence." I didn't bother responding. I grabbed a suitcase and started packing, throwing in clothes and essentials with trembling hands. I couldn't spend another minute in this house, with this man who had shattered my heart and my illusions. As I walked out the door, I felt a sense of relief wash over me, tinged with the bitterness of betrayal. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but anything was better than staying in a marriage built on lies and manipulation. It was time to pick up the pieces of my life and start anew, far away from Ethan and the toxic love that had nearly destroyed me. With my marriage in shambles and my heart in pieces, I found myself on my sister's doorstep, suitcase in hand. She took one look at my tear-stained face and pulled me into a tight hug, ushering me inside without a word. Over the next few days, I poured out my story to her, recounting every painful detail of Ethan's betrayal and the emotional abuse I had endured. She listened patiently, offering comfort and support, her anger at Ethan's actions simmering just beneath the surface. "You can stay here as long as you need," she assured me. "We'll get you back on your feet, Zara. You're stronger than you know." With her encouragement, I started looking for work, determined to regain my independence. I landed a job as a waitress at a high-end bistro, the kind of place Ethan and his colleagues would often frequent for business lunches. At first, I was nervous, worried that I wouldn't be able to keep up with the fast-paced environment and demanding customers. But as the weeks passed, I found myself thriving in the role, my natural warmth and attentiveness shining through. The regular customers began to take notice, complimenting me on my service and friendly demeanor. "You always manage to brighten my day, Zara," one elderly gentleman said, patting my hand as I refilled his coffee. "You have a real gift for making people feel welcome." Their kind words were a balm to my battered self-esteem, slowly helping me rebuild the confidence Ethan had systematically torn down. I started to see myself in a new light, not as the worthless, unlovable woman he had made me believe I was, but as someone with value and purpose. One evening, as I was clearing tables after a particularly busy shift, my manager pulled me aside. "Zara, I just wanted to let you know how impressed I am with your work," he said, smiling warmly. "You've become an integral part of our team, and the customers adore you. Keep up the great work." I thanked him, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment wash over me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was truly good at something, that I had a place where I belonged. As I walked home that night, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come in such a short time. Just a few months ago, I had been a broken shell of a woman, convinced that I was nothing without Ethan. But now, I was standing on my own 2 feet, building a life for myself that had nothing to do with him. When I arrived at my sister's apartment, I found a large envelope waiting for me on the kitchen table. My heart sank as I recognized Ethan's handwriting, and with trembling fingers I tore it open. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by Ethan. A note was attached, his words dripping with disdain. "I've made it easy for you, Zara. Just sign on the dotted line, and you'll be free of me. Not that anyone else would want you, but at least you won't be my problem anymore." I stared at the papers, a mix of emotions swirling within me. Relief that I could finally sever ties with the man who had caused me so much pain. Anger at the callous way he dismissed our marriage, and a tiny lingering sense of sadness for the love I had once believed we shared. But as I picked up the pen and signed my name, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I was no longer Ethan's wife, no longer bound to a man who had never truly loved me. I was Zara, a woman with her own strength, her own worth, and a future that was mine to shape. I slid the papers back into the envelope, sealing it with a sense of finality. Tomorrow I would mail them to Ethan's lawyer, and my new life would truly begin. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to find out. A few weeks after I sent the signed divorce papers, I decided to visit the apartment Ethan and I had once shared to collect the last of my belongings. As I stepped inside, a flood of memories washed over me, both good and bad. I pushed them aside, focusing on the task at hand. I was just finishing up when I heard the front door slam open. I spun around to see Ethan standing there, his face contorted with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he snarled, storming towards me. I stood my ground, refusing to be intimidated. "I'm just getting the rest of my things, Ethan. I have every right to be here." "Like hell you do," he shouted, grabbing my arm roughly. "This is my apartment, Zara. You have no claim to it anymore." I yanked my arm free, glaring at him. "Actually, Ethan, this apartment has always been in my name. My grandparents gave it to me as a gift, remember? You never had any legal right to it." His eyes widened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of uncertainty cross his face. But it was quickly replaced by fury. You can't just sell it without my consent, he bellowed. I won't let you get away with this, Zara. I'll take you to court and make your life a living hell. I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. Go ahead, Ethan. Take me to court. I'm sure the judge would love to hear about your infidelity and emotional abuse. I have plenty of evidence to back up my claims. He opened his mouth to retort, but before he could speak, the front door opened again. We both turned to see Valerie standing there, her eyes wide with shock. Ethan, what's going on? She asked, her voice trembling. I smiled coldly. Hello, Valerie. I see you two are still going strong. I hope you know what you're getting into with this one. Valerie's gaze darted between Ethan and me, confusion and fear written all over her face. Ethan, what is she talking about? Ethan's face paled, and he took a step towards her. Valerie, baby, it's not what it looks like. Zara and I are just having a little disagreement about the apartment. It's nothing to worry about. I scoffed. A little disagreement? Is that what you call it when you ambush your ex-wife and try to intimidate her into giving up her property? Valerie's eyes narrowed and she crossed her arms over her chest. Ethan, I think you have some explaining to do. I picked up my box of belongings and brushed past them, pausing in the doorway. You two deserve each other, I said, my voice dripping with contempt. But Valerie, if I were you, I'd watch my back. Ethan has a habit of lying and cheating to get what he wants. With that, I walked out, leaving them to their own devices. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I felt a sense of triumph wash over me. I had stood up to Ethan, had shown him that I was no longer the meek, submissive woman he had married. I was stronger now, and I wasn't going to let him push me around anymore. As I made my way back to my sister's apartment, I couldn't help but smile. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Free from Ethan's manipulation, free from his constant criticism and abuse. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. I had survived Ethan's betrayal, had picked up the pieces of my shattered life, and put them back together. And now I was ready to start a new chapter, one where I was in control of my own destiny. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was never going to let anyone treat me the way Ethan had ever again. I was done being a victim, done being a doormat. From now on, I was going to stand up for myself and fight for the life I deserved, and heaven help anyone who tried to stand in my way. A few days after the confrontation at the apartment, I received a call from an old coworker at the law firm. She had overheard Ethan spinning a tale to Valerie about moving into his family's luxurious vacation home, and she couldn't help but reach out to me. Zara, I know it's none of my business, but I thought you should know, she said, her voice laced with concern. Ethan is lying to Valerie about his living situation. I've seen the place he's talking about, and it's a far cry from the mansion he's describing. I thanked her for the information, a plan already forming in my mind. I knew Ethan's lies were going to catch up with him sooner or later, and I was determined to be the one to expose him. I dug through my old files until I found a photo of the actual vacation home, a rundown shack that was barely habitable. Armed with this evidence, I made my way to the law firm, determined to confront Ethan and Valerie. As I walked into the office, I saw them standing together by the water cooler, laughing and flirting as if they didn't have a care in the world. I marched up to them, a smile plastered on my face. Ethan, Valerie, so good to see you both, I said, my voice dripping with false sweetness. They turned to face me, Ethan's eyes narrowing in suspicion. What are you doing here, Zara? I thought I made it clear that I didn't want you around. I ignored him, turning to Valerie. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation about the vacation home, Valerie. It sounds absolutely lovely, but I think there's something you should see. I pulled out the photo of the shack, holding it up for her to see. This is the real vacation home, Valerie. The one Ethan has been lying to you about. Valerie's eyes widened, and she snatched the photo from my hand, studying it closely. Ethan, what is this? You told me it was a luxury estate with a pool and a tennis court. Ethan's face paled, and he stammered, trying to come up with an explanation. But before he could speak, I pulled out my phone, playing a series of audio recordings. The recordings were of Ethan's raunchy encounters with various women at the office, evidence gathered by a fed-up coworker who had had enough of his misconduct. The sound of his grunts and moans filled the air, interspersed with the giggling and sighing of his conquests. Valerie's face turned bright red, and she rounded on Ethan, her eyes blazing with fury. "You bastard! You've been cheating on me this whole time, haven't you? With every woman in this damn office." Ethan held up his hands, trying to placate her. "Valerie, baby, it's not what it sounds like. I can explain." But Valerie wasn't having it. She slapped him hard across the face, leaving a bright red handprint on his cheek. "Save it, Ethan. I've heard enough. I'm going straight to HR and reporting your sorry ass for sexual harassment. We'll see how long you keep your job once they hear about this." She stormed off, leaving Ethan standing there, his mouth agape. He turned to me, his eyes filled with rage and desperation. "You bitch," he snarled, taking a step towards me. "You've ruined everything. I'll make you pay for this, Zara. I swear to God, I'll destroy you." I laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "You've already destroyed me, Ethan. You took everything from me, my love, my trust, my self-respect. But now it's my turn. I'm going to watch you lose everything, just like I did, and I'm going to enjoy every damn minute of it." With that, I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving him to face the consequences of his actions. I knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came out, before Ethan's web of lies unraveled completely, and when it did, I would be there to watch him fall. True to her word, Valerie marched straight into HR and reported Ethan's misconduct. She provided them with copies of the audio recordings I had shared, as well as her own testimony about his lies and infidelity. The fallout was swift and severe. Ethan was immediately suspended pending an investigation, and within a week he was fired from the law firm. His reputation was in tatters, and word quickly spread throughout the legal community about his unethical behavior. I watched from the sidelines as Ethan's life unraveled, feeling a sense of grim satisfaction. He had brought this upon himself, and now he was paying the price for his actions. But even in his downfall, Ethan couldn't let go of his ego. He showed up at my sister's apartment one evening, pounding on the door and demanding to see me. I opened the door warily, keeping the chain latched. "What do you want, Ethan?" He looked haggard and desperate, his eyes bloodshot and his clothes rumpled. "Zara, please, you have to help me. I've lost everything, my job, my reputation, even Valerie. I have nowhere else to go." I stared at him incredulously. "You've got to be kidding me. After everything you've done, you have the nerve to come here and ask for my help?" He dropped to his knees, clasping his hands together in a gesture of supplication. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you, Zara. I'll do anything. Just give me another chance." I shook my head, feeling a mix of pity and disgust. "Ethan, I gave you more chances than you ever deserved. I put up with your abuse, your lies, your cheating, all because I loved you. But that love is gone now, and it's never coming back." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with tears. "Zara, please, I know I can change. I'll be a better man, I swear it. Just don't leave me like this." I sighed, closing my eyes for a moment. When I opened them again, my gaze was steady and resolute. "Ethan, I'm not leaving you. I've already left. I moved on with my life the moment I walked out of our apartment with divorce papers in hand." I reached behind the door and picked up a small box, handing it to him through the gap. "Here, I packed up the rest of your things from the apartment. Consider it my final act of kindness." He took the box, his hands shaking. "Zara, I held up a hand, cutting him off. "I don't want to hear it, Ethan. We're done. I'm done. I have a new life now, one that doesn't include you, and I suggest you start building one for yourself, because I won't be there to pick up the pieces anymore." With that, I shut the door, sliding the chain back into place. I leaned against it for a moment, taking a deep breath. I could hear Ethan on the other side, sobbing and pleading, but I tuned him out. I had meant what I said. I was done with Ethan, done with the toxic love that had nearly destroyed me. I had fought too hard and come too far to let him drag me back down into the darkness. I pushed myself off the door and walked into the living room, where my sister was waiting with a cup of tea and a sympathetic ear. I sat down beside her, taking the mug and inhaling the comforting scent of chamomile. "You did the right thing, Zara," she said, squeezing my hand. "I'm proud of you." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. "I know, it wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I'm ready to move on, to start a new chapter in my life." She nodded, her eyes shining with love and understanding. "And I'll be right there with you. every step of the way. I leaned my head on her shoulder, feeling grateful for her unwavering support. Together we sat in silence, sipping our tea and listening to the sound of Ethan's footsteps fading away into the night. A month had passed since I last saw Ethan, and my life had taken a turn for the better. I had accepted a dream job in Seattle, working as a paralegal at a prestigious law firm. It was a fresh start, a chance to build a new life far away from the painful memories of my past. I was packing up the last of my belongings when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find Ethan standing there, looking disheveled and desperate. "Zara, please, I need to talk to you," he said, his voice hoarse. I sighed, crossing my arms over my chest. "What do you want, Ethan? I thought I made it clear that we were done." He pushed past me, stumbling into the apartment. I could smell the alcohol on his breath, and I wrinkled my nose in disgust. "I've lost everything, Zara," he slurred, collapsing onto the couch. "My job, my reputation, even my apartment. I've been sleeping on friends' couches and in my car. I'm drowning in debt, and I don't know what to do." I stared at him, feeling a mix of pity and revulsion. "I'm sorry to hear that, Ethan. But what do you want me to do about it? You brought this on yourself." He looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot and pleading. "I need you, Zara. I need you to give me another chance. I know I can change. I know I can be better. Just please, don't leave me like this." I shook my head, a sad smile playing at the corners of my mouth. "Ethan, I've given you more chances than I can count, and every time you've let me down. You've hurt me in ways I never thought possible, and I can't go through that again." He reached for me, his hands shaking. "But I love you, Zara. I've always loved you. We can make this work. I know we can." I stepped back out of his reach. "No, Ethan, we can't. Because the truth is, you never loved me. You loved the idea of me, of having someone to control and manipulate. But that's not love, and it never will be." I walked over to the door, opening it wide. "I think it's time for you to go, Ethan. I have a new life waiting for me, and you're not a part of it." He stumbled to his feet, his face twisted with anger and desperation. "You can't do this to me, Zara. You can't just walk away like this." I smiled, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. "I can, and I am. Goodbye, Ethan." He stared at me for a long moment, his eyes filled with a mix of rage and despair. Then, without another word, he walked out the door and out of my life. I closed the door behind him, leaning against it for a moment. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. It was finally over. I was free. I walked over to the window, looking out at the city skyline. In the distance I could see the Space Needle, a symbol of the new life that awaited me. I smiled, feeling a sense of excitement and anticipation. I had a new job, a new city, and a new love waiting for me. A man I had met at the bistro, a kind and gentle soul who had helped me heal and find happiness again. I picked up my suitcase, taking one last look around the apartment. It had been my home for so long, but now it was time to say goodbye. I walked out the door feeling a sense of lightness and freedom. The past was behind me, and the future was bright with promise. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I couldn't help but smile. I had survived the worst that life had thrown at me, and I had come out stronger on the other side. I was ready for whatever lay ahead, ready to embrace the new chapter in my life with open arms. And as I walked down the street, I knew that nothing could ever hold me back again.